thanks for staying with us. The big elephant in the room when it comes to global politics lately has been the enormous free trade deal known as the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Jim, there are a lot of people who aren't on board with this deal. Where do you stand on the agreement, the potential agreement, and the controversy between business and allegedly putting all the onus on the little people or on the people and not just on business?
So the reality is, I think there's a lot, I think the devil is in the details, and I don't think I have sufficient details to really render an informed opinion on this. There are many subjects on which I can speak with authority. Unfortunately, this is not one of them at this point. This is something that I think you really need to have a broad view of the situation and very detailed knowledge of the particular agreement to say whether it makes sense or not. So I'm going to defer to those that are smarter than I on this, but I got to tell you, there's a lot of controversy.
Sometimes maybe we don't want to say that the people that are doing the deal is really smarter than we are. Sometimes I think maybe it's they want to give the appearance that there's a lot of things that's being put into place that isn't, that's going to be the benefit of one particular segment, one particular country, or against one particular country.
Jim, I think you're being too hard on yourself here, because it has been extremely secretive. I think it started last October in Obama's administration, and that was the intent, was it for it to be secretive, and I think only a few...
Kind of like the healthcare deal.
No, it's almost like ISIS. I mean, you don't want a deal, you don't want people to know what your plan is for ISIS either.
They'll let us know when it's ready, apparently, and there have been a few chapters that have leaked, and that's the only reason that we have a little glimmer of what may be going on.
I think there's two things going on. So first of all, this is a cybersecurity deal, right? So this has to do with things that aren't necessarily, we don't need to release the tactical or the strategic, well, we can release the strategic but not the tactical details. But there is a bigger nuance here, which is in American politics, and especially when dealing with the electorate, anytime you talk about a trade deal, you get this notion of NAFTA. Unless we are willing to completely close our economy off from the rest of the world, we have to accept that manufacturing is going to go other places, unless we're manufacturing things that people in Mexico, in Thailand, in all these other lower labor markets can produce. So the lesson to be learned from that is free trade is going to happen, whether we like it or not. If we impose more tariffs, we're doing more damage to ourselves. So from the population standpoint, when you have Joe Blow in Indiana or Iowa or someplace going, I lost my job and it went to Mexico, they don't really have an understanding that we live in a global economy. Their job is going to go wherever it's cheapest. Now, if Joe Blow in Iowa or Indiana or wherever wants to keep their job, they need to become better educated and be able to produce a good that is not able to be produced in another market. So the lesson to be learned about that is some of the strongest economies in the world, places like Japan and Germany, they still have a lot of manufacturing. Why is there manufacturing in Germany? Because they can produce a quality good that nobody in the developing world can produce, because they have the skill set, the education, and the ability to produce those goods that nobody else can produce. So we as an economy have to adapt to our place in the world. We cannot pretend that we live in an insular environment where there is nobody else around us.
But cybersecurity is a little bit different than what a NAFTA agreement is. The cybersecurity that they're keeping very secretive now is to keep things. What did we just hear this evening? Today is Wednesday. And when people hear this, it's going to be Thursday, Saturday, or another day. But today I heard that Russia has now got so many names of cell phones. And they'll start some type of I guess, finding out different things about different people through a cell phone. Well, look, those are the kind of cyber things that we're trying to be protected. You hear all these WikiLeaks, you hear all these different things that are happening.
The largest threats from a cyber standpoint And we had, much bigger than even Russia having all these numbers was the Yahoo hack. So 400 million accounts, including passwords, all personal information, everything were released by a state actor that they did not name. So that's going to be one of two countries, Russia or China. China is our biggest cyber threat right now.
And it's not like free trade is a new thing. I think that this agreement is, in a sense, trying to make a level playing field for, let's face it, multinational corporations are really who is involved here. It's not just cybersecurity, even though that's one of the main points, but I find it very worrisome, and I'll tell you why. That you talked about jobs leaving, that for sure, but also the tribunal setup. So if another country that's involved with this partnership says, well, whatever mandate you put in place in your country, with whether it's environmental, sustainability, something like that, if it's hurting my profits, guess what? I get to sue you. The other problem I have is the countries that are involved with it up to this point. I think it is just a way for the U.S. to get around the powerhouse that is China.
I think you're probably right on that point.
Well, and ultimately, we are going to have to make these types of strategic relationships because China is going to be a threat. And again, I think the part that we talked about, free trade, oftentimes that's a portrayal in the media and what people see it as. There's a lot more nuance to this, but there is the 800-pound gorilla in the room is going to be China in the next 50 years. That is our biggest strategic threat. Russia is a threat, but I don't think they have the economic backbone to be able to really be a threat to us in the long term. China, it does, and they will.
So therefore, you're going to be voting for Donald Trump, whose main goal is to...
I am voting for Donald Duck.
Clan Donald.
That's right.
Up next, this week, election update. Stay tuned.